The Moto Z and the OnePlus 3, a jewel that not a lot of people would consider, but the more you look into the specification, price and availability of the two, the more you see just how much of a jewel it could be. My name is Ryan Thomas with Failtech, and let's find out who comes out on top in 2017. Let's start out with the set of odd features. The OnePlus 3 is an extra £50 than the Moto Z, depending on where you buy them, but they came out at the same time at different prices. The OnePlus 3 actually came out over £100 less than the Moto Z, which is a big price difference. Nowadays though, the OnePlus is considered quite a bit rarer than the Moto Z, and so you're more likely to get the Moto Z at a cheaper price. The designs are very different, but the build quality of both is phenomenal, with premium metal and glass materials being used, which makes the phones feel premium like the S flagships and iPhones, but at a reduced price, which is really good. The Z is an ultra thin device with a large camera bump for the Moto mods, and the OnePlus 3 is a slightly chunkier but still super thin device with a smaller camera bump. I personally feel that the OnePlus 3 just looks and feels gorgeous, and I don't really like the aesthetic of the Moto Z. I think that it feels pretty solid, but I'm not a fan of the look of it from any angle really, especially the back. I'm not a huge fan of the back. The screens are rather different in specification. Both are 5.5 inches and both are AMOLED panels, which is really nice to see, but the OnePlus 3 has a 1080p panel which looks stunning for the price. I honestly can't tell the difference between 1080p and QHD at this size, but the Moto Z is running a QHD panel that looks great too. I feel like the OnePlus screen has more punch to it in the color department, or maybe that's just down to the calibration. I feel like the colors look slightly washed out on the Z despite it being an OLED panel, but both displays will get nice and bright, so outdoor use shouldn't be a problem either, and VR is going to be a hell of a lot better on the Z due to the higher pixel density. I think that the front-firing speaker on the Moto Z complements the screen too compared to the OnePlus 3's bottom-firing speaker. Both phones will make for a great viewing experience, and fine text is extra sharp on the Moto Z. The cameras are similar in spec and I feel in reality too. The OnePlus 3 has a 16 megapixel camera with an aperture of f2.0 which produces sharper images than the Moto Z and shoots slow motion where the Moto Z doesn't. As for the Z, it's a 13 megapixel camera with f1.8 glass that I think looks better on paper than in person because I didn't find it to actually be that good in quality. Both shoot UHD video, which is nice, but I feel the OnePlus 3 just again seems to do it slightly better than the Moto Z. As for secondary cameras, the Z runs a 5 megapixel sensor and the 3 runs an 8 megapixel sensor, so there's a sharpness increase on the OnePlus phones versus the Moto Z's camera. Both are going to give you decent selfies for Facebook and Instagram, though neither of these lenses will be as wide as something from Samsung. The system on chips in these phones are pretty much the same, with slightly different clocked Snapdragon 820s in both, as well as different RAM configs with 6GB in the OnePlus 3 and 4GB on the Moto Z. They're going to give you similar performance as they're both running similar SoCs and software. Neither really have any noticeable bloat, meaning that you shouldn't see any unwanted applications or software on there either. Both run as smooth as butter, and I would recommend both in the future, with both hopefully having nice and long support. Remember that they're only 1 gen old, and so it's a good start for a slightly budget smartphone. I would say that both are well good enough for everyday tasks, and if you're not paying more than $250, top specs for the price as well. One thing to mention though is that the OnePlus 3 does not accept Microsd Expansion, where the Moto Z does. Both are running the latest version of Android and should be supported for at least one more generation before you have to switch over to custom software to stay up to date, which isn't so bad. The batteries in these phones aren't huge considering the 5.5 inch form factors. My S7 Edge has a 3600 mAh battery, even with its curved edges, and it's a 5.5 inch phone too. The Moto Z in comparison has a 1000 mAh less, so 2600 mAh battery, and the OnePlus 3 has a much larger 3000 mAh battery, which kind of bridges the gap, but still isn't that big for a 5.5 inch phone. Expect about 4, maybe 5 hours screen on time though, because Doze is really coming into its own with recent updates. The speaker is a lot better on the Moto Z because it's front firing, which is a lot better than a bottom firing one, isn't it? So yeah, the OnePlus 3 does fall short here compared to the Moto Z. You're getting Type-C on both, which is nice, though it's only 2.0 and it's a bit of a pain. Though you do get a headphone jack on the OnePlus 3 where you don't with the Moto Z, which is pick your poison. The fingerprint scanners are both on the bottom at the front where you would kind of expect for a phone of this age to have it. However, the OnePlus 3 completely steals the show here with its speed and reliability as a scanner, and so I'd recommend that over the Moto Z in terms of its button. Also, it can actually be used as a button, saying that, whereas the Moto Z cannot use its front scanner as a button. It's software only. Overall then, I would pick the OnePlus 3, and not because the QHD screen and Moto mods aren't great, because they are, but I just prefer the design, the battery, the fingerprint scanner, and everything like that of the OnePlus 3, and that's why I would pick that. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you like it, dislike it if you disliked it, leave any comments that are more complicated than that in the comment section below, and please do subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.